One of the absolute keys to having brilliant rhythm on bass, to be able to play with excellent groove, is to be able to subdivide the beat and to be really in control of your rhythm. So that's what this entire lesson is about. So let's talk about what beats are. I mean, if you look at a bar of 4/4, that just means that you have 4 quarter note beats per bar. So like this, 1, 2, 3, 4. And most people instinctively know this. Most people just tap their foot or nod their head when they're listening to music and don't think much more about it. But what you want to do first of all is just do one of those two things. I suggest just learn to tap your foot religiously. If you're new to the bass or never really done this, then even that might seem difficult. But just tap your foot on the beats. That's what we call those. Those are the beats. So if you look here, I've just got a little example of musical notes here where you've just got 4 beats in a bar. The squiggly line is a rest. The coloured in blob with a stalk coming up is called a quarter note, okay? So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and you learn to place notes on this grid. So we'll start easy with this. So after 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. So you're going note, 2, 3, 4. You're playing on beats 1, 3 and 4, and then 1. So you just learn to count and you learn to hit the notes where you need to. Now, that's just the beats. When we subdivide a beat, we're just getting into smaller and smaller increments. Now, what that means in practice for us is 8th notes and 16th notes. These are the 2 types of rhythms that you're going to hear all the time in bass playing. So here we have 8th notes, and there are several ways to count them. I'll show you a couple. So an 8th note, one of them lasts for half a beat. They're called 8ths because you've got 8 in a bar. So they're grouped often like this, where you've got 4 8ths there, 4 8ths there, and each one of them is a half. If you add up half times 8, you get 4 beats. So in a bar, I know this is a bit maths here, but shouldn't be too bad. In a bar of 4, you have 8 of these entities that are worth half a beat. Okay, they're called 8th notes, and this is one way of counting them. Go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and by literally saying that, you are producing the rhythm. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. I actually never did that. I was just aware that on every beat, 1, 2, 3, 4, you could subdivide the beat into 2. That's what subdivision is. I was aware of that, and I would tap my foot and I would just da da. It's that. Every single beat, da, 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 da. So regardless of whether you know that or you're just going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, you're subdividing into 8. So this example here would go like this, 3, 4. I'm nodding my head and I'm tapping my foot exactly like that, 2, 3, 4, subdividing the beat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now in bass playing you have, or music in general, you have different tempos. So if you think about a real hard rock, grungy kind of line, that's a fast tempo. We're still subdividing the beat. And you can play notes in different lengths. You know, that was all very even. You can go short, long, long, short. You can make this sound and feel a little different, but the basic premise is the same. We have 8 of these 8th notes in every bar, and it's pretty religious that you're just counting like that, okay? Now, let's move on to this third example I have here. This is where things start to get a little bit more complex in terms of reading it, but the principle is actually the same. So we've got, I'll just play it first. We've got 3, 4. Again. We've got now a note that appears that not on the beat. If notes are on the beat, so literally on the 1, the 2, the 3, or the 4, quite easy to play. They're quite easy for you to feel. But if notes appear in between these beats, that's where things can be a bit more difficult. That's why you might tend to rush there or slow down. But how do you know where to play? Now this is this subdivision thing. So if we look at the first note, the A, that's on beat 1. That's fairly standard. We're just counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Bang, that's where it is. Now that second note is on the and of 2. That's how a musician would say it. The and of 2, or beat 2.5, means the same thing. If you're counting and subdividing the beat, then you can hit it very easily. So you're going 1 and 2 and. That's where it is, on the and of 2. Another trick that I absolutely love, I think I got this off Carol Kay on one of her videos years and years ago. An ultimate session musician used to read all the time. If you're tapping your foot 1, 2, 3, 4, when your foot hits the floor, those are the beats. That's fairly easy. But many people forget the upbeat. These are the offbeats, or the half beats, okay? And those are where we've got these ands, okay? So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So don't just concentrate on the foot tapping the floor. Be aware that when it comes up, you've got those half beats, the ands, okay? So we're going 1, 2 and. When your foot comes up, that's where you're hitting that. So very slowly. This only happens with practice, counting all the time, religiously. And if you're anything like I was when I first did this, I had to think about it quite a lot. That's okay. Take the time to think about it and be confused by it until the point where it becomes as natural as breathing. You know, the more you do it, of course, the better you get at this. So if it does feel a bit strange at first, you know, just tapping your foot and playing at the same time, that can be a bit of a challenge if you're a beginner or you're starting out, you know. Just practice every day, you will get it. So that whole line. 3, 4. Okay, let's move on to the next one. We're still subdividing into eighth notes here. And you can see that we've got some notes that are on the beats and some notes that are on those ands. Let me play it. 3, 4. Now, all of those notes where you've got that weird squiggle there, that's an eighth note rest. So you are finding on the beat, you've got nothing. That's what a rest means, do not play. And then the one after that is the and. So it's that's where you're concentrating on the foot coming up. So it's 1 and 2, a bit like a reggae kind of, you know, line. You know, you've got off beats. Very important to be able to feel those. So 3, 4. You're kind of going tap, play, tap, play, tap, play. That's going on the upbeat. They're a little more difficult to feel, those offbeats, but that's why if you're secure with your counting and you're secure with your subdivisions, if 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, if that works for you, go for it. If my method of just tapping your foot religiously and knowing that each beat has, you know, that rhythm, if you just want to do that over and over again, it's the same thing, you're subdividing. Here we get to 16th notes, which look on paper extremely scary. We're subdividing the beat a little bit further now. So every beat now has 4 16ths. And that's how they're visually represented in music. You've got that, you know, blob colored in with a line coming up, and then you've got these beams. Whereas before with eighth notes, you had 1 beam on the top. You've now got 2, and that tells you 16th notes. Why 16? Because we've got 16 in a bar and it's split up further, so you've got 4 bunches of 4. So what you're doing now is every single beat that goes past, 1, 2, 3, 4, you need to subdivide down into 16ths, so there's 4 in every single beat. So one way of counting that is to go 1 E-ander. So 1 E-ander, you've got 4 rhythms that have passed in that time. 1 E-ander, 2 E-ander, 3 E-ander, 4 E-ander. And that's not the way I ever did it either. I was just religiously tapping my foot, and I was just going, just making some sort of noise or whatever. So knowing that there's 4, because you can't really count to 16. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It's too much, okay? That's why 1 E-ander, 2 E-ander, or just going works. But that is subdividing the beat, and if you're not doing it, you're missing out, okay? So there, 3, 4. This would be... We're still going the same tempo, but obviously we've got more notes flying past because we've got like a, you know, a big more of a subdivision going on here. So you're going to have to move your fingers a bit faster there. We've got index, middle. You can bring in a metronome to help you mark out the beats. If that puts you off too much, just don't bother with it at the moment. Now in the next line, we've got some of those squiggly rests again. That was the rest that lasts for a whole beat. And so here we're counting again. It would go like this. Okay. Now obviously, this isn't really a reading music lesson, although we are reading notes here. Reading music isn't that difficult, actually. You can get it together in no time at all, and it's brilliant for studying rhythms. Next one, now look at this. It's also good for explaining, because if you just compare the previous line with this line, the rhythms in the second line are exactly the same, except now we've got a 16th note rest. The 8th note rest had sort of one of these little sort of things coming out of the line coming down. Now this has got two, exactly, got two beams. That tells you it's 16th notes. Well, there you've got a 16th note rest. So taking it very slow, we've got, let's take just the first beat, 1 E and A. You play everything apart from the and. So it's like 1 E and A. If you literally say the rhythm you're playing, you'll understand it. If you slow it right down and say you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 16ths in that beat, then you're playing 1, 2, missing out 3, and playing 4. So it'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4. And then that's literally the rhythm. Da, da, da. Okay, once you've deciphered it, they're all the same. Rest. Okay, the next line, same principle. This time it's the E and the A, so the second and the third 16th notes that we're missing out. So again, let's slow it down. So 1 E and A, da, da. Or you could go 1, 2, 3, 4. The 2 and the 3 are rests, so you don't play them. That's quite a tricky rhythm, that. The last 16th is often quite difficult to get, but not if you're counting and not if you're subdividing. I think that's the point. If you listen to all the great bass players, just did a lesson on great bass players, and Pino Palladino figured, I absolutely love his playing. His grooves are watertight. Why? Because he's just got a sense of rhythm, unshakable sense of rhythm, and that comes with just being aware of the beats and just subdividing naturally, okay? We're working on it, and then it becomes natural. This rhythm here will have this 3, 4. Last line, we've got something that's a little bit more like a bass line, a little bit less like an exercise. We've got that same rhythm as before, and then we've just got 16th notes all the way, da 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 da, so 3, da 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 da. Then we've got the same rhythm again, and then 8th notes. Let me play it, break it down a bit after. Okay, so A. We've got the 1 E and A, 1 A. By the way, if you learn to read rhythms, after a while, you get a very visual connection with what you're seeing and what you're playing. You've seen it before, and so you can marry that up with how it goes. I love reading because it can really help your rhythms especially. So then we've got rest on beat 2, and then beat 3 is da 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 da. That's kind of easy enough. It's just 4 16ths, A, B, C. Then we've got the same rhythm again, this time on G, and then 3 and 4 and. In a couple of weeks' time, I'm going to do a reading lesson, go a bit more into reading music, because I think to study rhythms and the fretboard, I think it's just absolutely brilliant. But really the take-home point for this lesson is to absolutely religiously tap your foot. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then be aware of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 8th notes being 2 of them in every single beat. 1, 2, da, 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 da. If you're tapping your foot, you come up on the offbeats. Then you've got the further subdivision 16ths. That's subdividing the beat, and that is absolutely crucial. Funk music has a lot of 16th notes, a lot of syncopated stuff going on there. A lot of like faster rock music has 16th notes as well. And then, it's just a case of really getting used to it, practicing it every day. The more you do it, the more you'll be able to place your notes on whatever the grid is. You're doing 8, if you've got a really strong sense of where they are, you can do all kinds of different rhythms. Same with 16th notes. Obviously with 16th notes, a bit more technique involved in that. So learning the bass is all about that. It's all getting the connections, a little bit of patterns with your fretboard, a bit of rhythmic knowledge like this lesson, a bit of technique to get you around the bass. There's a few things that you need to get together, and once you do, you know, everything becomes much easier, I find. So if you've got any questions at all about this lesson, or you know, any suggestions for any follow-ups based around this, do let me know. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.